Hey, so are you drowning in money stress and unsure where to start? Misty Gaetz has been there, but over the last several months, she has turned things around, saving and paying off thousands of dollars and making incredible financial progress. Now, in today's episode, Misty is here to share her journey and how she started building momentum with her money. And if you've ever felt stuck, this is the dose of hope and encouragement that you've been waiting for. Stay tuned. Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's show. I am Brad Nelson, founder of Debt Free Dad. I paid off about $45,000 in debt. I have been debt free now for more than 12 years. I've also been fortunate to be able to help thousands of other people save and pay off tens of millions of dollars with the work that we do here at Debt Free Dad. Now, after listening to this episode, if you are ready to take things to the next level, you're ready to break free from living paycheck to paycheck, you want to reduce all that financial stress, maybe build a savings and finally pay off your debt for good. But maybe you're like many, including myself at one time, you're just not sure where to get started. Well, we've created some incredible free resources here at Debt Free Dad to help you get there. And I'll be sharing some details about that later on in today's episode. Now, as I said, I would love to welcome Misty Gaetz to the podcast. Now, Misty is 37 years old, and she is married to her husband, Mike, for 9 years now. Congratulations. They have two kids, Matthew and Morgan, and a dog named Jewel. Misty says that they love to travel, kayak, camp, and visit amusement parks. And she adds, we want to become debt free so that we can buy a house, and that would be our only debt. So, hey, Misty, welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast. So glad that you are joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you recently joined Roots back in January as we're recording this. It's the last day of April. So you've been with the Roots Personal Finance Program for about 4 months and starting. We're going to get into everything that you guys have been able to do since joining. But the first thing I want to ask you is really just how you got started with learning about money and what kind of led you to the point of eventually joining this kind of a program and trying to get help with your finances. Can you kind of share maybe the ups and downs of your financial life as you kind of got out of being a kid to being an adult and how that all worked out for you?
Yeah. So I come from a divorced family and I lived with my dad until I was 9 and then I moved in with my mom. My dad worked 12 to 18-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. So we didn't really see him a lot. I have two older siblings that, we just kind of took care of each other, took care of ourselves. And then when I moved in with my mom, she worked jobs off and on. My stepdad had a full-time job pretty much the whole time they were together, at least the whole time I lived with them. He still works at the same place. He worked a lot of hours too, sometimes like a swing shift, 12 hours a day, 2 days on, 2 days off every other weekend. So they worked a lot. And then she was home quite a bit in between jobs. But we never went without, but you could tell there were some financial struggles there. There was never
Yeah.
talk about like, hey, this is how you responsibly use credit cards. You need to have money in the bank. You need to have a good savings, things like that. When I moved out, I went to college. I lived on campus, which looking back now, I probably could have saved a ton of money living at home. I only went to school an hour from home.
Right.
Only went to school for 14 months initially. So I could have drove back and forth for that amount of time. I had a reliable car. I got a job at 14 and I've worked pretty much ever since then. Once I got my permit, we financed a car that I made the payments on. It was in my mom's name, but I made the payments on it. And then once I turned 18, I bought a car in my own name and had a payment on that. I've pretty much always had a car payment. I've always, like I said, I've always worked pretty much since then. When I met my husband, we worked at the same factory. We were working 7 days a week most of the time, 12 hours a day. We were making pretty good money. We went ahead, bought a house, and the payment was manageable. Well, we had two vehicle payments at that time. And then we traded his vehicle in on another vehicle with a bigger payment. And we had the house payment and it was financed at a good rate. I mean, this was 2016. Things were much better than they are now.
Right.
Um, then our factory cut back hours. We were to the point where our income was cut in half almost. And we're
Wow.
like, oh crap, how do we get by?
Yeah.
So he took a job at a trailer factory and it didn't pan out to make what he was supposed to be making. It was costing us more for him to drive to work than what he was really making. And we were like, okay, we can't do this. So he went to a foundry to work, and that's where he's at now, 6 years later. And that helped us out. Well, then I switched jobs, and it was the same thing. It didn't pan out very well. And then we had our second child after I switched jobs. And when it came time to like have her find a daycare that was affordable with an hour drive to work, for me, it just didn't work. So we're like, hey, I'm gonna stay home. I started working for a business that his dad owns. I don't make a ton, but I make enough, and I didn't have daycare then, so it
Right.
offset. And then our homeowners insurance went up, and of course, while we were at the jobs where we weren't making what we thought we were going to be, we started racking up credit card debt. And a lot of times it was groceries or gas. It wasn't frivolous things. Some of it was, but it just added up over time. And we never really sat down and were like, hey, how much debt are we in?
Yeah.
Well, then our house needed repairs, and we started doing that. At one point, we were like, the housing market was up. We're like, look, we got to get out of this now before we lose the house. We actually took out a cash advance on one of our credit cards to be able to make our house payment 1 month. And that's when I was like, something's got to give. We've got to do something different. So we talked with my father-in-law. We're like, hey, if we sell the house, can we move in with you for a while? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So we sold the house, and we came out ahead on the house, and we put that money in the bank, and we sat on it for 6 months. As we're trying to pay off debt, we started having monthly meetings on our finances, and in credit cards alone, when we sold our house, we were $70,000 in debt. I also
Wow.
have student loans, car payments, all of that. And it was a lot. So we sold our house 2.5 years ago. So we've really been trying to get out of the debt so that we can buy property or a house so we can move out on our own again. And we had $20,000 sitting in the bank, and we're like, oh, that's great. That's a great down payment. But we're still struggling to get by every day, like
Yeah.
week to week, living paycheck to paycheck. And we finally were like, listen, we're going to take a chunk of this money, and we're going to pay off this set of stuff. And we did that, which helped us. It helped our cash flow a little bit. We did do a debt consolidation loan, which has helped our cash flow. But we also, with that, went, hey, this is what we were already paying on this debt. This is what we're going to keep paying on this debt. We were only getting about $2,000 a month paid off each month as we're having these monthly meetings going. We're making progress, but not very fast.
Right.
Then I had my vehicle needed a $10,000 repair. And
Yeah.
I was like, I can't afford a $10,000 repair when I'm making a payment on it too. Because at that point we were down to about 2,000 in the savings. And I'm like, I've got a little bit sitting here, but I don't have enough that I can pay this 10 grand. Had we had the 10 grand, I probably would have just fixed it and kept driving it because I'm still making the payment. So we did trade it in. We did buy a new vehicle. And I know that's one of the things that it's like, don't buy new. But I'm like, my luck with used vehicles has been awful.
Right.
So this is what we're doing.
Right.
And it has been great. We're 6 months into that, but I do pay extra on it. What we were paying on everything when we sold the house is what we have continued to pay, and we've been snowballing it.
Right.
I think I found the podcast.
But up until this point, so you guys were already kind of on your own plan. Like you guys were,
Yeah, we
like
were
you said,
trying.
you guys were, I mean, you paying off $2,000 a month. You moved in with family just to kind of help out, sold your house. So yeah. And now, like you said, you found the podcast. So you were already kind of on a plan. So what do you feel like made that decision of like, we're going to try this process?
So I started listening to the pod, and I've listened to all of them except the last probably 5 now. And I was like, man, these people are making a ton of progress. And Katie Hatfield really was the one that I was like, if she can do that, we can do this. We've got this. You had advertised for the free Life Without Payments workshop.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do this. We go to bed early, we get up early, but I was like, hey, this is kind of later in the day or, late in the evening, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to dedicate time to this because something's got to give. We can't keep doing what we're doing because we're not making enough progress fast enough.
Right.
And so I did, and I had talked with my husband about it. I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And I got are we really going to spend money to get out of debt? And I was like, if it is the difference, then it's worth every dime we spend. So I did the Life Without Payments workshop. I signed up that night and I put it on a credit card. But I was like, hey, next week we're going to have a little bit extra. I can just pay that off. It's just not in the checking account right now.
Right.
And that's what I did. And we've made amazing progress since then.
Yeah. And I want to dive into that. Again, we have that free Life Without Payments workshop. We do them every quarter, and you decided to join. Can you talk to me about like what was in that workshop? You mentioned you've heard the stories. Katie Hatfield. I mean, Katie's obviously a co-host on our podcast from time to time. And I mean, as a single person, has paid off nearly $200,000 in debt. Like it's incredible what she's done. But what was it the thing that was like, you know what, we need to do this. We need to try something different. Was it just the stories or anything that you heard in that workshop that made you pull the trigger?
It was the stories, it was, kind of like, here's, like, kind of the plan. There's more to it, but this is, like, the basics, and if you do this, all of these people again, I've heard all of the stories, like, and I'm like, "There's no reason why that can't be us." She's
Yeah.
doing it single, I've got a dual income. It's like, what can we do different that isn't gonna be a drastic change to make this change that's gonna take over and, change things for us quicker? The way we're going, we're on track to be debt free in 3 years. And
Yeah.
that's my student loans, the new truck, everything.
Yeah.
So,
That's incredible. So when you joined, again, we're recording this at the end of April. You joined mid-January-ish is when we did that
mhm.
last workshop. What were some of the early things that you started to do? And again, I want you to share briefly here in just a minute, like what you guys have been able to do. I mean, you guys have paid off thousands of dollars already, which is absolutely incredible for just doing it for 4 months. But was there anything initially that you started to do that, again, you were doing 2000 on your own, but what really started to like push the gas pedal down for you that you started to learn in roots that you could do differently?
The biggest thing was you can't pay off debt while still using debt. So we stopped completely using credit cards. We've just, unless it's something like, we have a couple cards that have a zero balance on them, and like we have like our subscriptions and stuff on there, and that gets paid off every month. But if there's not money for it, we also started doing cash stuffing. We have a checking account that we were using for just groceries. Well, that has become cash because we would go in and not be paying attention and overspend. Well, we'll just put it on the credit card now. Now I take my tablet in with me and I add it up as I go. I have a list, we follow the list, and we may deviate from it a little bit, but one or two things, that's it. It's got to be on there. And taking the list to the store has been huge, but definitely just not using debt anymore.
Yeah. When you were going through this process, you had mentioned not all of your spending was frivolous. You did have some, but one of the big things that we have people do is go through in Roots is really look at your past spending habits. Was anything eye opening when you went through that process? Because a lot of people will say, Brad, I'm convinced I can't save and pay off debt. But then when we have them go do this, they're like, oh my gosh, I can. I didn't even realize what I was spending on certain things. Did you have anything like that?
We were spending, yes, our eating out was our big one. We were spending between $700 and $900 a month for four of us to eat
Yeah.
out.
So you found you guys were spending $700 to $900 a month on eating out.
Yeah, just on eating out. And then we were still spending, $500 or more at the grocery store. And I was like,
Right.
there's no way we're eating $1,400 a month in food. Like,
Yeah.
especially when there was just four of us and two of them were little kids. I
Right.
mean, they're 6 and 8 now, but they were 3 and 5 3 years ago. And I'm like, my 3-year-old didn't eat that much, and my 5-year-old didn't either. We've started meal planning. I sit down normally once a month and write out the whole month because we have busy schedules. I don't have time to do it weekly. I'd rather just do it monthly. And then I started going to the store like 3 times a week. And on Sunday, I go for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, I get the latter part of the week. And then if Friday we need to pick some things up, we do. But it was like, instead of trying to go once a month and you're like, what do I need for the month? Because that's what we were doing. And then we'd buy stuff and never eat it. We cleaned off a shelf that we keep like our snacks and stuff on. And I'm like, I bought this 2 years ago at Costco and we never even opened it.
Right.
It's got to go. So that's a waste of money. So it was very eye opening, like knowing that that's what we're spending on eating out. And now, for the most part, we eat out once a month. And we really don't need to do that. It's so expensive. And with the price increases that have gone on over the last few years, it's even more expensive. I'm like, I'm glad we're not eating out 3 or 4 times a week because
Right.
it'd be way more than $900 now.
Yeah. 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 And I think the thing that I love about this is that you guys were willing to, number one, really look at where your money was going, and you discovered something that was like really eye opening, how much money you're spending going out to eat. For other people, it could be other things, but you were also willing to look at it and say, this is going to be worth the sacrifice in order to
Mhm.
get to where we want to go. And that's what I would be interested to ask you next, is that you were doing this on your own. You were making some progress. What was it about like the system and the process that we share in Roots, how we lay it all out, the step by step? How did that help you with your overall plan of going at this? Did you see a difference with that too?
We did actually sitting down together and going over things, doing the cash part of it, actually like learning about like the psychological connection with cash that you don't have with the card, because I was like, oh, well, I can use my debit card. It's not the same. Looking in that envelope and going, oh, I've got this much, even today, we went and got groceries this morning. And my son was like, hey, can we get Oreos? And I was like, let's see what the total is when we get the stuff we need. And then if there's money left, then yes, we can. But I've got to get these things for dinner the rest of the week. Just knowing that you've got the community support, like going through the lessons and listening to it and doing it with my husband and being able to bounce ideas off of him and going, hey, we could do this. But the other part of it was like, you don't have to stop doing everything,
Yeah.
because that was his first question was, do we have to not do anything?
Right.
And I was like, no. I
Yeah.
was like, but we have to be able to pay for it in cash. If we can't pay for it in cash, then we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And that's been our big one. And actually paying for it, not just going, oh, it's on the card, we'll pay for it later.
Right, right. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you if your husband had any sort of pushback, or as you guys have done this over the last 4 months, especially when you first get started, because that is one of the number one things we get from couples is like, how do I get my spouse or partner on board? I really want to do this. They're kind of dragging their feet a little bit. Did you have any of that experience? Obviously, you mentioned like, we don't have to cut everything out, do we? Because that's usually what we hear from the other partners. They feel like it's got to go scorched earth. We're not having fun ever again. And then,
Yeah,
we don't really teach that in Roots at all. And it's quite different,
correct.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, we're busy around the house. So, like, if we really want to spend quality time with our kids, we have to leave and go do something, because otherwise, we're not really engaging with them or really spending quality time with them. So, we have season passes to amusement parks, and that
Yeah.
is our big thing. My kids love it. They're both tall enough to ride most of the things. So, he's like, we're still going to do that. We're still going to camp. We don't spend a lot of time at camp. So, we've started this year taking a small Blackstone with us that
Okay.
actually his dad has for his camper, but when he's not using it, he's like, you guys can use it when I'm not. So we've been able to make breakfast at camp, but it's like we're very minimal. Tent camping's cheap. So we're like, hey, we're going to go do that. We're going to camp for 2 or 3 nights. We're going to hit the amusement parks. And um, it's all paid for, and we've paid for it with cash. And this is so much better. There's no stress about, oh, hey, we spent $400 this weekend that now we have to either work extra or, hey, where are we getting this money from? And that's how it was before. There was no
Yeah.
plan. It was just, we'll figure it out later. And at first, it was like, are you sure about this? Can we do this? And I was like, let's give it a go. Worst case scenario, we spent the money, we don't use it. I was like, I think we should do this. And we've not made it through all the modules yet. Life got chaos. And I'm like, okay, I've got to start sitting down and doing this again. But watching the videos with him, throwing around ideas, going, hey, this is what I heard on the podcast. This is what we talked, or what they talked about. Um, he's very open to it. And it's the fact that he lives at home again at 30 years old. And he's like, no, really, I want to move out. And one day our kids were like, hey, when can we move out of Pawpaw's house? And it was like, oh, we got to do something. It's not exciting anymore 3 years later.
Right.
And it was okay, we're gonna do this. And we started doing it. He needs a different work vehicle. So him and his dad went and looked at one. They're like, hey, it doesn't run, but it just needs this part fixed and it'll run. Okay. Well, he comes home, he's like, hey, I'm going to go do that. We borrowed the money from his dad for that. And that's the family loan that we have that we're paying off. And it was, hey, we'll pay it back at tax time. That was the plan. And he goes, I'm going to pick it up on this day. And then me and my buddy are going to work on it this day. And I said, hold on. You don't have any money in the auto repair envelope yet to fix that. How are you doing that? And he goes, we'll just figure it out. And I go, no, no, no. That's how we got in this situation to begin with. Pump the brakes. Like, we can do this, but you can't do it this weekend. And he was like, oh. Okay. And so then we worked through that and all the repairs on it were paid in cash.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, I'm good with that. As long as it's paid in cash, I don't care."
Yeah.
You
That's
know.
what I love about it is that, especially when you were talking about the camping, the amusement parks, and I think that's the key is that everyone needs to sit down. Your budget should allow you to be able to, because we all work hard for our money. Your budget is permission to go enjoy the things that you want to enjoy. Your budget, though, is also a good guideline of, like you mentioned, you guys discovered some really drastic overspending when it came to eating out. It's also kind of your guide of like, this is fun to go eat out, but is it the most important things in our lives? And you guys determine, no, it's not. We're going to change our ways. We're going to do meal planning, but we're also not going to give up the amusements and the camping because that is important to us. Right. So I think when people need to understand that when they're listening to this, that a budget is not ripping everything fun out of your life and only sticking to just paying down debt. It's really just making a conscious decision of these are the things that we really love and enjoy. We're going to prioritize this, but we're willing to sacrifice on other things in order to build an emergency fund and pay down debt. And you guys have done such a great job with that. So I'm curious, Misty, can you share real quick, what have you guys actually been able to save and pay off since you guys started here mid-January? And again, we're talking about 4 months.
Mhm. So we have saved $1,772 and we've paid off $12,850 just in the 4 months.
That is incredible. I mean, you're talking over $14,000 swing
Mhm.
in just 4 months. When you look at that, did you think that would ever have been possible when you started?
I did not. I was amazed. This first full month we were in the program, we paid off $5,500 and I was like, "There's no way this is gonna happen again." The second month, we were at, $4,200. Or it was $4,200 the first full month, and then the second full month, it was 4,200 more dollars, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Holy cow, this is great." We're really doing this and we're staying on track. We're not seeing that we're losing out on anything. Yeah, we don't go out to eat as much, but is that really that big of a deal? Hey, we've got a plan. And with the meal plan, there's no guesswork in it. It's not, hey, what are we having for dinner? It's, hey, look at the fridge. It's on there.
Yeah. Right.
That's what we're having. We're good.
Right.
So it's been a huge like improvement for us and a huge help. And just the community being able to go in and like seeing different ideas that people are doing has made a huge difference. Or being able to go in and go, "Oh, this, all we did this month was this." And they're like, "No, that's great." It doesn't matter how small it is or how big it is. Like any progress is good progress.
Yeah. I want to talk about the accountability and the support side of it because
Mhm.
obviously you were doing this on your own and now you're not. You're obviously doing it with the help of Roots and the community that we have there. And we have the live meetups if you want to attend. I want to talk about the difference there. But first thing I want to ask is if you were kind of at the point where it's like we got to do something different. Can you talk about the emotions before versus how you feel now and the progress that you've made? Has there been a difference there as far as stress levels, hope, things like that?
I would get up at 3 o'clock every Friday morning to figure out what bills we were able to pay, how we were going to make sure everything, all minimum payments were hit on time, make sure everything's paid on time. And now we do our Roots 15 every day. And it's like I look at it a little bit at a time and it's like, hey, this is where we're at. Okay, we're cool. Like, and it's almost to a point where like the bill comes in the mail, we just pay it. It's not, oh, okay, it's due the 25th. It's gotta be in the mail by this day, or I have to pay it online the
Yeah.
24th when I get paid. Generally it comes in the mail, I write the check and it goes back out. Like there's that cash flow, just it seems to flow better. Like, we're paying more off, but we seem to have more money to be able to do it. It's way less stressful. I get up when my husband leaves for work and I spend 15 minutes a day on the computer going, okay, this is where we're at. Everything's balanced. We're good.
Yeah.
Um, and by the time Friday rolls around, if there's anything that has to be paid online, it's a matter of going in again 15, 20 minutes and hitting pay and going on,
Yeah.
not 3 or 4 hours in the morning doing it.
Yeah. That's incredible. And you're right. It's amazing how much better a lot of the members feel, including myself at one time when I first started. Just once you have a plan, once you start making that progress, the momentum starts building, you start getting those wins. It just feels so much better. You're just almost well, you shouldn't say almost. You are mentally in just a much better state of
Absolutely.
really working on your finances. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that accountability and support. You mentioned, you can go in there, hear from other people and celebrate your wins. Like how much of a difference for you guys has that made in this progress versus like say when you were doing it before on your own?
It's wonderful having like the other members cheering you on. We're going, oh man, we've only paid off, at the time before Roots, we were like, oh man, we're only paying off $2,000. And then we hit that $4,200 mark. And I was like, man, that's good, but is it enough? And then you post and people are like, oh, that's great. You're doing awesome. Like, and it's just that extra encouragement.
Yeah.
And kind of that dopamine hit of people being excited for you. Like,
Right.
it's great. Okay, I want to keep doing this so I can keep getting that encouragement and celebration with it. And then also going in and reading through other people's like different things that they've done and like, hey, I had this option to use and I finally used it. I haven't used it forever and it, took care of all these things or,
Yeah.
you know,
You had mentioned, I think your husband said it, and I think before we started recording, I think you said your father-in-law said it too, I believe. Um, why would you spend money to say save money and get out of debt? Because people might feel that way. Buying or I guess investing in this type of a service where we help you save money, get out of debt, give you a system and a plan. A lot of people might say, well, that's counterproductive. Why not I just do it on my own rather than spend money there? Can you talk about that a little bit and how you've overcome that?
well, it was a thought of mine at first, and then to hear all the stories, the success stories and stuff, and then to see our progress. We were doing $12,000 a year or in 6 months, and now we've done that in 4 months. So it's like we're seeing the progress. And it was like, at that point, what do I have to lose?
Right.
Yeah, I spent this little bit of money, but if it doesn't work, that's minimal compared to the debt I have. But if it does work and we're out of debt, way sooner than what we would have been before, it was a risk I was willing to take because the success stories that I heard, and I was like, I'm no different than these people. Katie, for instance, she was making 12 or $13 an hour when she started. I'm like, I make almost double that, like, on my own, plus my husband's income. Yeah, we've got about $140,000 in debt, but I've got more income and we can do this. Just lay it out and do it and put the time and effort into it. And there's the accountability there. Like you're checking in weekly at least and going, hey, this is where I'm at. So I felt like I was going to be more apt to stick to it because of having to check in with it.
Right.
um
Right.
and the 30, 60, 90-day check-ins, it's like, oh, where are we at? And it's exciting to see that, you
Yeah.
know and have the encouragement of you emailing or commenting on the post in the group like, hey, good job, that's awesome. And I'm like, hey, these are people that have done this and they're still excited about my win.
Right. Yep. And that's what it's all about. That community is one of the number one things, just like you said. It's not just the education. It really is the big part of it is the support and accountability. And it really is the driving factor for so many of our members who were doing okay, like you said, doing okay on our own, but really just wanted to do better. And it is the difference maker for so many people. Well, Misty, I just want to say thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. It's been incredible just to see your early progress. Like I said before we hit record, for you to come on and open up a little bit and share. I know it can be a little bit scary because talking about money and you've been here and being very transparent of your experience. And I know that there's going to be other people out there listening, like Katie motivated you. There's going to be people out there saying, well, if Misty and her family can do this, we can do it too. So it's just so cool that you were able to come on and share a little bit with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I can't wait to see where we're at in a year or 2 years. See if we can get that 3-year debt free mark a little sooner.
Absolutely. Love it. All right, guys, there you have it. If you want to get started, just like Misty has shared in today's episode, you want to break free from living paycheck to paycheck, you want to start reducing your financial stress, build a savings, and finally start making progress with paying off debt. But maybe, again, you're not sure where to get started. Don't worry. We've got you covered. Simplify My Money is a newsletter that is sent to you each and every Sunday to your email. Now, Simplify My Money is a step-by-step roadmap to better financial control, and you're also going to learn easy-to-follow strategies to manage your money effectively. It's stress-free money decisions that are going to help you simplify your financial life with proven tips that actually work, and you're going to gain the tools and confidence to tackle your financial goals head on. Sign up for Simplify My Money by clicking the link at the top of the show notes. Thanks for joining us on today's show, and we will see you guys on the next episode.